So this one is going to be about thinking. Maybe afterwards we're also going to talk about articulating oneself a bit better and how to improve that, which derive in terms of motivation and or inspiration from Jordan Peterson and his thoughts on why being able to communicate clearly and why being able to think well is incredibly important, which I, by the way, think is the case as well. If you're able to communicate your points in a good way, and therefore also think in a well way, whatever this might mean for you or might even mean for me, well, I think it is just important. So yeah, 7 steps to improve your analytical thinking skills. How are your analytical skills? Analytical thinking skills, like any other skills, are natural to some, but not innate to everyone. You must have a keen interest, a sense of drive and perseverance to learn about a certain topic to acquire this skill. After all, cultivating an analytical skill set is a skill like any other that takes honing and application. If you're ready to enhance your analytical skills, then read on. Well, 7 steps to improve your analytical thinking skills. If you think your analytical thinking skills need some brushing up or you just want to improve it, here are some strategies you can do. Be observant. Take a walk outside or observe people in your office. Use as many of your senses. See what's happening around you. Is there anything that interests you? Remember, you have to actively engage your mind. And I still also believe that being able to see quote unquote correctly and or more than other people see is important. Read books. Once again, the key to improving your analytical thinking skills to keep your mind active and running. Read books and try to work on an active reading strategy. Proactively read and digest and question what you're reading. You can highlight, raise questions, read aloud, or make predictions to stay engaged with your reading material. Learn how things work. Don't just find the solution, but know how exactly certain things work. By scrutinizing how things work, you will have a better understanding of the process, which is vital in stimulating your analytical skills. Ask questions. Did you know that curiosity makes us smarter? Which makes sense, but anyway, according to neuroscientist Araceli Carmaggio, I think he's Italian, I don't know why. The more curious we are about a subject, the more it engages our cognitive functions such as attention and memory. With that said, asking more questions can help develop better problem-solving skills. Play brain games. I'm not gonna go into that much. Practice your problem-solving skills. Keep in mind that for every problem there is a solution. Visualize and be articulate in the presentation of a particular concept. Prepare 2, 3, or even more solutions to a problem. If possible, do test runs on those solutions, see which one is the best and the most logical. And the last one is think about your decisions. Making important decisions at work is very common. Thus, thinking hard and rationalize your decisions. What are the pros and cons of your decision? Ask for an expert opinion if available or do extensive research. Ask yourself, is this the best solution for this problem? Take a step back to rethink it a bit more, and then you can finally decide. At the end of the day, like any skill development, you have to a lot of practice. You have to do a lot of practice and application. Since we went through that, so what about how to improve your articulation now? Here are 5 ways to become more articulate in both your personal and professional life. Well, let's just check out the first one, just for the sake of it being the first one. The first point is listen to yourself. Even if you hate the sound of your own voice, one way to become a better communicator is to record how you participate in conversations. Do you speak in many run-on sentences? Go off on a lot of hang-ins? Are you hard to understand? Identify your problem areas by listening to yourself so you can fix them. And I, for example, know for myself that I tend to not speak as clearly as I sometimes should, which might derive from maybe the way I speak, maybe also the way I'm using my mouth, maybe having it more closed than I'm having it opened, which could definitely create a scenario or a space that, or puts me into a place where I am not understood that well. The second, don't be afraid to pronounce. One bad habit that can get in the way of powerful speech is mumbling. Fully pronounce each syllable to prevent trailing off when speaking. Doing so also slows you down and gives audiences more time to understand your thoughts. And you, at least in my point of view, you're gonna sound way more confident in whatever you think about and talk about, because you're just, well, not necessarily over-pronouncing it, but you're communicating it so clearly, not necessarily in terms of the words that you're using, but as they point out, in the way you are delivering it. It just makes sense. The third is keep it simple. I'm gonna pass that. Forget the filler. One surefire way to sound less articulate is to overuse filler words such as am, and like. These words indicate to your audience that you are unsure of your direction. As leadership expert Selen Resvani says, rather than these filler words, consider using let's move on to, or another important consideration is, or let's transition to talking about as replacements, which I've been talking about in the other episode that I recorded already, and still believe that it makes sense and that it is a good point to make, and also to emphasize your practice on. The fifth, pay attention to your audience. I'm gonna skip that as well, which makes sense, and this is also the last one. Let's check out another article. How to be more articulate. It's nothing more than accurate. Let's just see. It's a Medium post. Sometimes you can find really amazing people being there and writing there. There's nothing more than accurate communication. The first one is expand your vocabulary. And I'm not talking about the dictionary of difficult words. When I finished high school and I first went to college for the first time, I really wanted to sound more articulate, and so what I did was I bought a dictionary, and I wanted to learn more words, more difficult words, so I studied it every day. I would work on a different alphabet and I was studying these difficult words, and what I found was that people didn't understand what I was saying, because difficult words, when you're expanding your vocabulary and you're using harder words, the thing about being able to articulate is that you want people to understand what you're saying. The sentence didn't make any sense. Maybe I've kind of skipped words. Could be, but yeah, if people don't understand you might sound smart, but this is not really gonna improve your communication skills. It's not gonna improve your articulation skills. So if you're using difficult words, that is likely they are going to use those words in everyday language, which they won't understand what you're saying. Being articulate means expressing your perspectives clearly. It's not about expanding your vocabulary to words that are harder, but more to focus on words that express your emotions. I would actually argue that using words that, per definition, say what you want to say and can be used in the way you want to use them. I mean, for quite everything, there is a word, and of course it makes sense to not use the most difficult ones and to not use those that nobody is going to understand, because this is kind of the contradiction of clear communication, so to speak. Anyway, practice improvising. Yeah, there's nothing to, I think, say about that more. Pause, which I think is incredible. It's like negative space when we think about design and making something. The areas in life, in design, in communication where there's nothing, as pauses are, they are incredible. I mean, if you're talking really, really fast, then people might not be able to understand you, which also plays into being or pronouncing the words more clearly and really pronouncing the syllables clearly, which, as they've been talking about in the other, or writing about in the other article, it's gonna slow you down naturally. So it is kind of a relationship. Pay attention to your tone and accutation tone. The first one is tone. In some languages, like Chinese, for example, the tone is word specific. If you change the tone, you change a completely different words. You change to a completely different word. But in English, the tone is statement specific, which means that if you change your tone, you're changing the meaning of what you're saying. Pay attention to your tone in your speech, and that will help you to become more articulate. Accentuation is when you simply make certain syllables more distinct by either seeing them more loudly or putting more emphasis on them. Pay attention to both your tone and accutation to help yourself to become more articulate. Listen to yourself. Do you feel energized or drowsy? Do you feel pleasant or irritated? Also, another good rule of thumb is to get feedback from other people that you trust and give them permission to give you their honest feedback and criticism. The sixth point is portray confidence and self-assurance. The seventh is use the variation. You want to vary the length of your sentences. For example, once you have used a long sentence, then follow up with a short sentence and vice versa. This also helps to get your message across more clearly because, for example, if you use 3 or more long sentences in tandem, then you might lose your audience due to an overload of information, which I think is also the case in speech, even though I believe that we tend to speak in a way shorter sentences than we write. Understand yourself, which I think might be actually one of the most important points. If you're talking about something, one should really, or you should really, or we should really know what we are talking about. You know, the better we know the subject, the better know what we're talking about. I think the better we're also able to communicate that. Not just, but it is the case. Anyway, I think that I'm gonna end the episode there. So I do think, by the way, also reading more and therefore understanding structures of sentences makes sense, as I've actually also seen in people that attend school with me, so my classmates, my past classmates, some of them, especially the really smart ones, they seemed to read quite a lot, and they seem to enjoy that, which, well, I do not want to say that one should emulate this lifestyle or one should emulate these people, because it might just not work for you as it works for these people, because we all are different and we all also gain knowledge in different ways. You know, some are gonna read a book and some are gonna listen to something, some are gonna talk about it, some gonna use osmosis, whatever. But, well, books really got emphasized, and I do not necessarily wanna put all the weight on books, but in general, like reading. You know, reading per se does not have anything to do with books, but I mean, there's different ways, at my point of view, how one should be using the internet versus books. And in some ways, it's going to be smarter to use a book, especially when it is. Well, it also depends on the article that you're reading on the internet, though. But I in general feel that reading a book is going to give you more of a broad perspective and more of a broad spectrum of information, rather than Googling something, which is going to give you a very narrow and distinct path of information, which, I mean, if you do not know the subject very well, is gonna not lead to quite a lot, I think. If you really know one particular aspect of this subject very clearly, but nothing else, then I don't know, it just does not really sound smart or well or whatever. On the other hand, books, because of them being very broad in knowledge, they can give you a good overview. But as I said, it tremendously depends on what you're reading, what article it is, also what book it is. I do not want to say that books are always like very just surface scratching the information. I mean, there's books that are really going into depth, but you don't have to search for information when you're reading a book. The information is already there. And so there's often no need. It also depends on the quality of the book, of course. I mean, well, yeah, let's put it like that. Read what you want to read, gain knowledge, gain information, articulate, and, well, articulate, this is well said. Try to be able to communicate clearly. I think this is the overall topic. Communicating clearly, whatever this is going to include. But I think it is going to include just some things. Also articulation, and having a decent vocabulary so that you can really say what you want to say. But also respecting the fact that not everyone is going to understand what you say if you're saying it in a specific way, using specific words. But anyway, gonna end the episode there. Wish you the best. See you soon. Bye-bye.